What I'm about to say may challenge everything you believe about your struggles, your failures, and the battles taking place inside your own mind. Most people spend their lives chasing the next achievement, the next opportunity, the next victory, believing that peace, confidence, and happiness are waiting somewhere on the other side. But the ancient Stoics understood a truth that few people ever fully grasp. The greatest prison is not built from stone or steel. It is built from unexamined thoughts, unchecked emotions, and fears allowed to grow in silence. The moment you understand this, you begin to see that many of the forces shaping your life were never outside of you to begin with. Life will disappoint you, plans will fail, people will leave, circumstances will change without warning. None of that is new. The real question is whether those events shape your character or weaken your spirit. Because while you cannot control what happens to you, you can control what those experiences become. And that distinction changes everything. There is a kind of strength that cannot be taken away by rejection, failure, uncertainty, or loss. It does not come from favorable circumstances. It does not come from luck. It comes from mastering the one thing that has always belonged to you, your own mind. And once that mastery begins, even in the smallest measure, the world itself starts to look different. Not because life becomes easier, but because you are no longer seeing it through the same eyes. The moment responsibility replaces helplessness, the conversation inside the mind begins to change. Instead of asking why something happened, attention shifts toward deciding what should happen next. Instead of searching endlessly for reasons to feel defeated, energy moves toward finding useful action. Progress becomes possible again because attention returns to the present moment, where influence actually exists. This is where many people experience a profound shift. They stop waiting for circumstances to improve before improving themselves. They stop treating every setback as evidence that life is against them. They begin to understand that while they cannot always choose what happens, they can always choose the quality of their response. That realization does not remove difficulty, but it transforms the relationship with difficulty. It replaces helplessness with agency. It replaces resentment with responsibility. And it restores a sense of power that was there all along. Life rarely unfolds according to perfect plans. There will always be delays, disappointments, misunderstandings, and unexpected turns. That reality does not change. What changes is the relationship with those experiences. The more deeply this understanding takes root, the less dependent peace becomes on favorable conditions. Stability begins to come from within rather than from external circumstances. And that may be one of the most important realizations a person can reach. The quality of life is shaped not only by events, but by the meaning assigned to them. Change the interpretation, and the experience itself begins to change. Not because reality has become easier, but because the mind has become clearer. From clarity comes better judgment. From better judgment comes wiser action. And from wiser action comes a resilience that remains steady, even when life is not. If your response determines the direction of your life, then it becomes impossible to ignore a deeper question. What is shaping that response long before a challenge ever appears? Most people pay attention to their actions, but very few examine the influences quietly shaping those actions every single day. They notice the outcome, but overlook the source. They see the anxiety, the frustration, the lack of focus, yet rarely stop to consider what has been feeding those states for weeks, months, or even years. The mind does not suddenly become discouraged. It is conditioned. It absorbs patterns. It reflects what it consumes. Just as the body responds to the food it receives, the mind responds to the thoughts, images, conversations, and assumptions it is exposed to repeatedly. This process happens so gradually that it often goes unnoticed until its effects become impossible to ignore. Many people begin their day by surrendering their attention before they have even gathered their thoughts. The moment they wake up, they step into a stream of information that demands a reaction. News designed to provoke concern, opinions designed to create division, images designed to encourage comparison, endless reminders of what others possess, what others have achieved, and what others appear to be becoming. Then, as the day progresses, they wonder why their minds feel restless. They wonder why concentration feels difficult. They wonder why contentment seems distant. Yet the answer is often hidden in plain sight. Attention is not a passive resource. It is one of the most valuable forms of energy a person possesses. Marcus Aurelius understood this centuries ago when he wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Whatever repeatedly captures your attention begins to shape perception, and perception eventually shapes reality. The ancient Stoics understood this long before modern psychology gave it a name. They recognized that the quality of a person's inner life is directly connected to what that person allows into their mind. They knew that external influences cannot always be avoided, but they can be examined. A careless thought does not become dangerous because it appears. It becomes dangerous when it is accepted without question. Fear works in a similar way. It often enters quietly. It presents itself as preparation, caution, or realism. Yet when left unchecked, it grows beyond its original purpose and begins influencing decisions that have nothing to do with genuine danger. The mind starts rehearsing failure before any attempt has been made. It starts creating obstacles before opportunities have been explored. It begins defending itself against futures that do not exist. This habit is more common than most people realize. A person receives an opportunity and immediately thinks about everything that could go wrong. A goal appears, and attention moves toward the possibility of failure rather than the possibility of growth. A challenge emerges, and the mind begins constructing reasons why success may be difficult. None of this happens because people enjoy suffering. It happens because the mind naturally moves toward what it has practiced. If it has practiced worry, it becomes skilled at finding reasons to worry. If it has practiced doubt, it becomes efficient at producing doubt. The mind becomes familiar with the patterns it repeats most often, regardless of whether those patterns serve it well. If these ideas resonate with you, consider subscribing, not as a gesture of support, but as a commitment to returning to these principles. In a world that constantly pulls attention outward, it can be a reminder to keep turning inward, to examine your thoughts more carefully, strengthen your judgment, and develop the kind of mind that remains steady when circumstances are not. Some lessons are worth revisiting. Some ideas reveal more of their value each time you encounter them. This is why discipline begins long before difficult moments arrive. It begins in ordinary moments that seem insignificant. It begins with what is read, what is listened to, what is entertained, and what is allowed to occupy mental space throughout the day. Most people wait until they feel overwhelmed before they become concerned about the condition of their minds. By then, the influence has already taken root. A garden is not transformed in a single day. Neither is a mind. Both are shaped gradually through consistent attention. As Epictetus observed, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Every thought entertained repeatedly becomes easier to revisit. Every belief rehearsed gains strength. Every perspective reinforced becomes more familiar. Over time, these small influences accumulate into something powerful enough to shape not only behavior, but identity itself. This realization can feel uncomfortable because it removes the illusion that mental states are entirely accidental. It suggests that many of the struggles people experience internally are connected to habits they rarely notice. Yet there is also something deeply liberating about this understanding. If the mind can be shaped unconsciously, it can also be shaped deliberately. The same process that allows fear to grow can be used to strengthen clarity. The same repetition that reinforces doubt can reinforce confidence grounded in action. The same attention that feeds distraction can be redirected toward purpose. None of this requires perfection. It requires awareness. There will always be negative thoughts. There will always be uncertainty. No human being reaches a point where every thought is constructive and every emotion is calm. The goal is not to eliminate difficulty from the mind. The goal is to become more selective about what receives attention. Attention is permission. Whatever receives it consistently becomes stronger. This simple truth explains why some people feel trapped by mental patterns they desperately want to escape. They continue feeding what they hope will disappear. Consider how often people revisit old disappointments. A mistake from years ago remains active in memory because it continues receiving attention. A criticism spoken once continues influencing self-perception because it is mentally repeated hundreds of times. The original event may have lasted only moments, but the mind extends its life through constant rehearsal. In this way, many people suffer more from their interpretations than from the events themselves. The experience ends, but the story continues. And as long as the story continues, the emotional influence remains alive. Learning to redirect attention is not a dramatic process. It is often quiet. It happens when a person notices an unhelpful thought and chooses not to follow it further. It happens when comparison appears and is replaced with gratitude for the present moment. It happens when fear begins predicting failure and attention returns to the actions that can actually be taken today. These decisions may seem small, but their effects accumulate. Every act of mental discipline strengthens the ability to choose rather than react. Over time, something remarkable begins to happen. The mind becomes less vulnerable to every passing influence. External noise loses some of its power. Fear still appears, but it no longer dominates. Comparison still exists, but it no longer defines worth. Distraction remains available, yet it becomes easier to return focus to what matters. This change does not occur because life becomes easier. It occurs because attention becomes intentional. And once attention becomes intentional, the mind gradually stops being shaped by accident and starts being shaped by choice. Once a person begins paying attention to what enters the mind, another realization often follows. Awareness alone is not enough. Understanding a principle and living by it are two very different things. It is possible to read countless books on discipline, listen to endless discussions about resilience, and understand every lesson intellectually while still struggling when life becomes difficult. Information can illuminate a path, but it cannot walk that path for anyone. There is a distance between knowing and becoming, and that distance is crossed through repetition. The mind is not transformed by a single insight. It is transformed by what is practiced consistently. This truth can feel frustrating because people naturally prefer breakthroughs over routines. They hope for a moment of clarity that changes everything at once. Yet lasting change rarely arrives in dramatic fashion. More often, it appears quietly through actions repeated so many times that they gradually reshape character itself. Consider how any meaningful skill is developed. No one becomes physically strong by learning how exercise works. No one becomes a musician simply by studying notes on a page. The knowledge may provide direction, but the transformation occurs through repeated effort. The same principle applies internally. Mental strength is not built through agreement with wise ideas. It is built through applying those ideas when they are inconvenient. Anyone can remain calm when circumstances are favorable. The real test comes when expectations collapse, when frustration appears, when uncertainty demands a response. In those moments, knowledge reveals its limitations. What remains is practice. What remains is the collection of habits formed long before the challenge arrived. This is one reason the Stoics placed such importance on daily discipline. They understood that difficult moments do not create character from nothing. They reveal what has already been cultivated. When pressure appears, people often fall back on their strongest habits rather than their highest intentions. A person may intend to remain patient, but impatience takes over if impatience has been practiced repeatedly. A person may intend to remain courageous, but fear gains control if fear has always been obeyed. This is not a failure of intelligence, it is a consequence of conditioning. The mind follows familiar pathways, it returns to what it knows best. That is why seemingly small choices matter more than they appear. This process often feels unimpressive in the beginning. There is rarely immediate evidence that anything significant is happening. A person chooses discipline over comfort today and wakes up tomorrow feeling largely the same. They resist a negative impulse and see no dramatic transformation. They remain committed to a principle despite uncertainty and receive no instant reward. Because progress is gradual, many people abandon the process before its effects become visible. They mistake slow growth for the absence of growth. Seneca captured this idea when he wrote, "No man becomes good by chance." The qualities that define a strong character are not built in a moment of inspiration. They are built through repetition, through small decisions made consistently, often without recognition or immediate results. Yet some of the most powerful changes occur beneath the surface long before they can be measured externally. Think about how confidence is commonly misunderstood. Many assume confidence appears first and action follows. In reality, the opposite is often true. Action comes first. Confidence develops afterward. The people who appear confident are rarely people who waited until fear disappeared. More often, they acted while uncertainty was still present. They moved forward despite doubt. They kept promises to themselves repeatedly. Over time, those experiences accumulated into trust. Confidence is not merely belief in success. It is trust in one's ability to respond regardless of the outcome. That trust cannot be borrowed. It must be earned through experience. This explains why courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to act without allowing fear to become the final authority. Fear will always offer reasons to avoid discomfort. It will always suggest postponing difficult conversations, delaying meaningful goals, or remaining within familiar limits. As Aristotle observed, we become brave by doing brave acts. Courage is not something that appears before action. It is strengthened through action. If every decision is based on comfort, growth eventually stops. The mind begins associating discomfort with danger rather than development. As a result, opportunities are missed not because they were impossible, but because they felt uncomfortable. There is something liberating about accepting this reality. It removes the pressure to transform overnight. It shifts attention away from dramatic results and back toward daily effort. Progress becomes less about achieving perfection and more about strengthening consistency. The focus changes from proving something to others toward becoming reliable in one's own eyes. This is where genuine self-respect begins to emerge. Not from external recognition, but from repeatedly acting in alignment with what is known to be right. Over time, these repeated decisions create a foundation that cannot be easily shaken. Challenges still arise. Difficult emotions still appear. Uncertainty remains part of life. Yet something has changed beneath the surface. The mind no longer depends entirely on feelings for direction. It has learned to rely on principles. Feelings fluctuate. They change from moment to moment. Principles endure. They provide stability when emotions become unpredictable. They offer guidance when clarity seems distant. This shift may be one of the most important developments a person can experience. The moment principles become stronger than impulses, excuses begin to lose their influence. Comfort no longer dictates every decision. Fear no longer controls every action. The mind becomes less reactive and more deliberate. And while this transformation is rarely dramatic, its effects reach into every area of life. What begins as a series of small, disciplined choices eventually becomes something much greater. The quiet strength of a person who has learned that lasting change is not created by what is known, but by what is practiced consistently. Many people believe they are trying to become more positive when, in reality, they are trying to become more comfortable. At first glance, the difference may seem small, but it changes everything. Comfort seeks the absence of difficulty. It wants certainty, predictability, and relief from anything unpleasant. Genuine positivity is something entirely different. It does not depend on conditions being favorable. It does not wait for life to become easier before it appears. Instead, it develops the ability to remain steady even when circumstances refuse to cooperate. This distinction is important because countless people become discouraged in their pursuit of growth for one simple reason. They expect a positive mindset to remove discomfort. When discomfort inevitably arrives, they assume something has gone wrong. They assume they have failed. Yet discomfort was never the problem. The expectation that life should be free from discomfort is what creates the deeper struggle. This misunderstanding appears everywhere. A person begins working toward a meaningful goal and encounters resistance. Progress slows, doubt emerges, unexpected obstacles appear. Almost immediately, frustration follows. The difficulty itself is challenging enough, but another layer quickly forms on top of it. The person starts questioning whether they should feel this way at all. They assume that if they were truly confident, the process would feel easier. If they were genuinely motivated, they would not experience hesitation. If they possessed the right mindset, they would not struggle. As a result, they end up fighting two battles at once. The original challenge remains, and now they are also fighting their own emotional response to it. What began as a practical obstacle becomes a psychological burden. The Stoics approach this very differently. They did not expect life to be free from setbacks, uncertainty, or pain. In fact, they considered these experiences inevitable. Their focus was not on eliminating difficulty, but on developing the ability to meet difficulty without losing themselves in the process. This perspective creates a profound shift. When hardship is expected as a natural part of life rather than treated as an exception, it loses some of its power to surprise and overwhelm. The challenge remains real, but it no longer carries the added weight of disbelief. The mind stops asking why difficulty exists and begins concentrating on how to respond to it wisely. There is a certain freedom in accepting that life will not always align with personal preferences. Much of human frustration comes from arguing with reality. People create internal resistance against situations that have already occurred. They replay events they cannot change. They wish circumstances were different. They demand certainty from an uncertain world. Yet reality remains indifferent to those demands. The more energy spent resisting what already exists, the less energy remains available for meaningful action. Acceptance is often misunderstood as surrender, but they are not the same thing. Surrender gives up responsibility. Acceptance acknowledges reality, so responsibility can begin. Pain plays an important role in this process. Most people spend a great deal of their lives trying to avoid it. That reaction is understandable. Pain is uncomfortable. It disrupts routines and challenges assumptions. Yet pain itself is not always destructive. Often, it contains valuable information. It reveals attachments, exposes weaknesses, and highlights areas that require growth. The problem arises when pain is interpreted as evidence that something is fundamentally wrong. A difficult emotion appears and panic follows. A setback occurs and hopelessness emerges. The experience becomes larger than it needs to be because the interpretation magnifies its impact. This is where perspective becomes so important. Two people can endure similar hardships and emerge with entirely different outcomes. One becomes consumed by resentment. The other develops wisdom. One becomes trapped in bitterness. The other gains clarity. The circumstances may look remarkably similar from the outside, yet the internal experience differs dramatically. Marcus Aurelius pointed to this truth when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The difference often lies in the meaning assigned to the challenge. When adversity is viewed solely as an enemy, every difficulty feels like a personal attack. When adversity is viewed as a teacher, even painful experiences begin offering lessons that would otherwise remain hidden. None of this means that suffering should be celebrated or romanticized. Difficulty is difficult. Loss hurts. Disappointment hurts. Failure hurts. The Stoics never suggested pretending otherwise. Their strength came from refusing to exaggerate what was already painful. They allowed themselves to see situations clearly. They acknowledged reality without adding unnecessary fear, drama, or despair. This clarity created stability. Instead of becoming overwhelmed by imagined futures, they focused on the present moment and the actions available within it. That focus changes the entire experience of hardship. A person who is consumed by fear often becomes trapped in possibilities. They worry about outcomes that may never arrive. They rehearse scenarios that exist only in imagination. Their energy becomes divided between the present challenge and countless future concerns. Meanwhile, the person who remains grounded directs attention toward what can actually be done now. The problem may still exist, but it is approached with greater effectiveness because mental energy is no longer scattered across endless speculation. Eventually, adversity begins to look different, not because it has become less difficult, but because the person facing it has changed. The storm still arrives, uncertainty still appears, disappointment still finds its way into life, yet something within remains steady. There is less panic, less resistance, and less dependence on circumstances for emotional stability. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. What once seemed unbearable becomes instructive. And in that transformation, a deeper form of positivity emerges. One that is not built on comfort, but on the quiet confidence that no challenge has the power to define the person who faces it. Some of the most important changes in a person's life begin in moments that feel deeply unfair. At the time, those moments rarely appear valuable. They feel disruptive. They interrupt plans, challenge expectations, and force confrontations with realities that would otherwise be easy to avoid. Yet when people look back years later, they often discover that the experiences they once wished had never happened became the very experiences that changed them. Not because the events themselves were pleasant, but because they demanded something that comfort never required. They demanded adaptation. They demanded patience. They demanded strength that had not yet been developed. In many cases, they revealed abilities and qualities that remained hidden until circumstances made them necessary. This is one of the great paradoxes of growth. People naturally desire improvement, but they often resist the conditions that produce it. They want greater resilience without facing adversity. They want deeper wisdom without uncertainty. They want confidence without challenge. Yet life rarely works that way. The qualities people admire most in themselves and others are usually forged under pressure. Patience develops when waiting becomes unavoidable. Courage develops when fear is present. Discipline develops when comfort is available but intentionally set aside. These qualities are not abstract ideas. They are responses cultivated through experience. Without resistance, there is little reason for them to emerge. Comfort has its place. Rest is necessary. Stability is valuable, yet comfort alone rarely transforms anyone. When life becomes too predictable, growth often slows. People settle into routines that require little effort and demand little reflection. Days begin to resemble one another. Familiar patterns continue unchallenged. There is nothing inherently wrong with this, but it creates few opportunities for development. Growth usually begins when something interrupts that pattern. An unexpected setback arrives. A disappointment forces reassessment. A challenge exposes a weakness that can no longer be ignored. What initially appears to be a disruption often becomes an invitation to evolve. This reflection is not always pleasant. Few people enjoy confronting their limitations. It can be uncomfortable to realize how much control fear has been exerting behind the scenes. It can be difficult to recognize patterns of avoidance, self-doubt, or dependence on external approval. Yet awareness is often the first step toward meaningful change. Weaknesses that remain hidden cannot be addressed. Areas that go unnoticed cannot be strengthened. Adversity brings these things into view. It highlights them clearly, sometimes painfully, but often necessarily. This does not mean suffering should be pursued for its own sake. There is no virtue in seeking unnecessary hardship. The lesson is not that pain is desirable. The lesson is that pain does not have to be feared. Many people spend enormous amounts of energy trying to avoid every form of discomfort. They structure their lives around minimizing uncertainty and eliminating challenge wherever possible. While this may provide temporary relief, it often creates a deeper problem. The less familiar a person becomes with difficulty, the more threatening difficulty appears when it inevitably arrives. Avoidance increases sensitivity. Exposure builds capacity. Consider how people respond to setbacks after years of avoiding challenge. Small obstacles feel overwhelming. Minor disappointments seem catastrophic. Every disruption creates disproportionate emotional turbulence because there has been little opportunity to practice resilience. On the other hand, those who have learned to face difficulties directly often develop a different relationship with adversity. They do not enjoy every challenge. They do not welcome every setback. Yet they understand that discomfort is survivable. They have experienced hardship before and discovered that they are capable of enduring more than they once believed. This realization changes the meaning of obstacles. Instead of viewing every challenge as evidence that something has gone wrong, a person begins viewing challenges as part of the process itself. The obstacle no longer signals failure. It becomes part of the training. The delay becomes an opportunity to develop patience. The rejection becomes an opportunity to strengthen self-belief, independent of external validation. The setback becomes an opportunity to improve judgment and adaptability. The circumstances may remain difficult, but their significance begins to shift. Meaning plays a powerful role in endurance. People can tolerate remarkable levels of hardship when they believe there is value within the experience. The challenge remains demanding, but it no longer feels empty. Every difficulty becomes connected to growth rather than merely associated with suffering. This shift does not remove pain, but it changes the relationship with pain. Instead of being viewed solely as an obstacle, it becomes a source of information. It reveals what still needs attention. It highlights areas that require strengthening. It teaches lessons that comfort often leaves untouched. Over time, something subtle begins to happen. The experiences that once seemed destructive lose some of their power. Not because they become easier, but because the person facing them becomes stronger. Confidence grows through evidence rather than wishful thinking. Resilience develops through repetition rather than theory. Character becomes grounded in experience rather than aspiration. What once felt impossible becomes manageable. What once seemed unbearable becomes familiar territory. The individual who emerges is not free from challenges, but they are no longer defined by them. Most people spend years placing their emotional well-being in the hands of things they cannot control. They attach their peace to outcomes, approval, recognition, and events that remain uncertain by nature. As long as those conditions remain favorable, everything seems manageable. Confidence feels strong. Optimism feels natural. But when those conditions change, the emotional foundation built upon them begins to shake. This creates a cycle of dependence that often goes unnoticed. A good day produces confidence. A difficult day produces doubt. External events become responsible for internal states. Life begins to feel unpredictable. because emotional stability depends on factors that are constantly changing. The problem is not that circumstances matter. Of course they matter. Difficult situations create real challenges. Disappointments create genuine pain. Losses affect people deeply. The issue is that many people unknowingly grant those circumstances authority over parts of themselves that should remain independent. They allow temporary events to determine their sense of worth, their direction, and their peace of mind. As a result, they spend enormous amounts of energy trying to manage outcomes they cannot fully control. They attempt to guarantee success, eliminate uncertainty, and prevent discomfort. Yet no amount of effort can remove unpredictability from life. The future remains uncertain, regardless of how much a person worries about it. This is where a profound realization begins to take shape. The strongest individuals are not necessarily those who experience fewer difficulties. They are often the ones who have learned where to direct their energy. They understand that attention is limited, time is limited, emotional energy is limited. Because these resources are valuable, they become selective about where they invest them. Instead of exhausting themselves fighting reality, they focus on their response to reality. Instead of demanding certainty from the future, they focus on acting well in the present. This shift may seem subtle, but its effects are significant. It transforms frustration into clarity and helplessness into responsibility. This sense of agency changes how challenges are experienced. Consider how much mental energy is consumed by worrying about things that may never happen. People spend hours imagining conversations that do not occur, setbacks that never arrive, and failures that exist only in possibility. The mind becomes occupied with scenarios it cannot influence while neglecting the actions available in the present moment. Over time, this habit creates exhaustion because it asks the mind to solve problems that do not yet exist. The result is often anxiety disguised as preparation. The alternative is not indifference. It is engagement with reality as it actually exists. This means paying attention to what can be improved today rather than becoming consumed by what may happen tomorrow. It means directing effort toward actions rather than outcomes. A person cannot guarantee success, but they can guarantee effort. They cannot control every result, but they can control the quality of their preparation. They cannot eliminate uncertainty, but they can decide how they will meet it. These distinctions may appear simple, yet they create a powerful source of stability because they place attention where influence actually exists. As this way of thinking becomes more deeply integrated, confidence begins to change as well. Many people view confidence as an emotion. They assume it is something they either possess or lack depending on circumstances. Yet the most durable form of confidence is not based on feelings at all. It is based on trust. Specifically, trust in one's ability to respond effectively regardless of what happens. This kind of confidence does not require guarantees. It does not depend on everything going according to plan. It develops through repeated experiences of facing uncertainty and discovering that it can be handled. That is why truly confident people often appear calm rather than certain. They understand that certainty is rarely available. Life is too complex and unpredictable for absolute guarantees. What they possess instead is faith in their ability to adapt. They trust their judgment. They trust their discipline. They trust the habits they have cultivated through consistent effort. This trust allows them to move forward even when outcomes remain unclear. Eventually, confidence stops feeling like something that appears and disappears with changing circumstances. It becomes part of identity, not because a person believes they will always succeed, but because they know they can remain grounded regardless of success or failure. Their sense of self is no longer dependent on constant validation from the outside world. It rests on something more stable. It rests on character, discipline, and the ability to remain aligned with personal values even when conditions become difficult. As important as discipline is, and as valuable as self-control becomes, there is another element that quietly determines whether those qualities endure over time. A person can develop better habits. They can learn to manage their emotions more effectively. They can become more resilient in the face of setbacks. Yet without a clear sense of direction, even the strongest efforts eventually begin to lose momentum. Human beings are not designed merely to endure. They need something worth enduring for. They need a reason that extends beyond temporary comfort and immediate gratification. Without that reason, challenges begin to feel heavier than they actually are. Minor setbacks become major obstacles. Delays become discouraging. The mind starts questioning whether the effort is worthwhile because there is no larger destination giving meaning to the journey. This is why direction matters so much. It provides context. The same difficulty can feel unbearable in one situation and completely manageable in another, depending on the purpose attached to it. Consider how willingly people accept hardship when they believe it serves something important. Long hours become tolerable when they support a meaningful goal. Sacrifice becomes easier when it contributes to a valued outcome. Even discomfort changes its character when it is connected to something larger than itself. The challenge may remain exactly the same, but the way it is experienced becomes different because it now belongs to a larger story. Many people struggle not because they lack ability, but because they lack clarity. They move from one distraction to another, reacting to circumstances rather than moving toward a deliberate aim. Their attention becomes fragmented. Their energy becomes scattered. Every new obstacle appears significant because there is no larger framework helping them interpret it. Without direction, the mind becomes vulnerable to whatever happens in the moment. A difficult day feels like failure. A setback feels like defeat. Temporary emotions begin influencing long-term decisions. Progress becomes inconsistent because there is no clear destination creating stability beneath changing circumstances. Purpose changes that relationship entirely. It acts as a point of reference when life becomes uncertain. It reminds a person why they started when motivation begins to fade. It provides perspective during moments of frustration. This does not mean purpose eliminates difficulty. In many cases, meaningful goals create new challenges. They demand effort, sacrifice, and patience. The difference is that those difficulties now serve a reason. They are no longer random inconveniences. They become part of a process that feels worthwhile. The Stoics understood that a meaningful life requires intentional direction. They believed that actions should align with values rather than impulses. This principle remains just as relevant today. Many people spend years pursuing things they never truly examined. They chase approval because others seem to value it. They pursue achievements without understanding why those achievements matter to them. They follow paths chosen by expectation rather than conviction. Eventually, a sense of emptiness emerges because success without meaning rarely creates fulfillment. Achievement alone is not enough. It must be connected to something deeper. This deeper connection often begins with a simple question. What kind of person do you want to become? Not what do you want to possess? Not what do you want others to think about you? But who do you want to be when challenges arise, when opportunities appear, and when life demands difficult decisions? This question shifts attention away from external outcomes and toward internal development. It encourages reflection on values rather than appearances. The answer becomes a guide. It influences choices, habits, and priorities in ways that gradually shape the direction of an entire life. Once that direction becomes clear, many things begin to change. Distractions lose some of their appeal because they no longer align with the larger objective. Temporary pleasures become easier to manage because their value is measured against something more important. Difficulties remain difficult, but they become easier to endure because they are viewed through a different lens. The focus shifts from immediate discomfort to long-term meaning. A setback is no longer interpreted as a sign to quit. It becomes part of the path itself. This shift creates a remarkable form of endurance. People often assume resilience comes primarily from toughness. In reality, resilience frequently comes from clarity. Those who understand why they are moving forward can tolerate uncertainty more effectively than those who are simply relying on willpower. Willpower fluctuates, motivation rises and falls, emotions change from day to day. Purpose provides consistency when those other forces become unreliable. It remains present even when enthusiasm disappears. It continues guiding action when progress feels slow. There is a reason the strongest individuals often appear patient. They understand that meaningful goals require time. They do not expect immediate results from every effort. They recognize that growth unfolds gradually. Because their attention remains fixed on something larger, they are less likely to become discouraged by temporary obstacles. They know where they are going, and that knowledge creates stability. Every step may not feel significant, but they trust the direction enough to continue moving. This trust eventually influences every aspect of life. Thoughts become more aligned with actions. Actions become more aligned with values. Decisions become easier because they can be measured against a clear standard. Internal conflict begins to decrease because there is less confusion about what truly matters. Energy is no longer wasted pursuing contradictory goals. Instead, effort becomes concentrated and intentional. This creates momentum that extends beyond achievement. It creates coherence. Life begins to feel less fragmented because different parts are working together rather than pulling in opposite directions. Over time, this alignment becomes one of the greatest sources of inner strength. Challenges still appear. Disappointments still occur. Circumstances still change without warning. Yet there is something steady beneath those fluctuations. A person who knows what they stand for is far more difficult to shake than someone who is guided only by convenience. Their confidence comes from direction rather than outcomes. Their discipline comes from commitment rather than pressure. Their resilience comes from meaning rather than mere endurance. Eventually, positive thinking itself takes on a different role. It is no longer an attempt to ignore problems or force optimism. Instead, it becomes a natural consequence of living with clarity and purpose. The mind stops wandering aimlessly because it has something worth focusing on. Effort becomes more consistent because it serves a meaningful aim. Difficulties become easier to contextualize because they are connected to growth. Thoughts, actions, and purpose begin moving together rather than competing with one another. And when that alignment is achieved, something powerful happens. The attitude that once required constant effort becomes part of identity itself, creating a quiet strength that remains steady even when progress is slow, circumstances are uncertain, and the path ahead is still unfolding. Life will continue to test you. There will be days when progress feels slow, when circumstances seem unfair, and when the path ahead is difficult to see. But remember this: true strength is not found in controlling the world around you. It is found in mastering the person within. Every challenge is an opportunity to practice that mastery. Every setback is another chance to rise with greater wisdom, greater patience, and greater resolve than before. If this message resonated with you, don't stop here. Choose one of the videos on your screen and continue the journey. The next lesson may be exactly what you need to deepen your understanding and strengthen your mind even further. And to everyone who spends their time here seeking growth, clarity, and self-mastery, thank you for being part of Stoic Journal. Until next time, remain steady, remain disciplined, and keep moving forward.